And by the way, you might find that in the lowest poverty level, and I would dare say the top 1% try to scam the system, I probably think all the time. So let's not disparage anymore the middle class that we already have by presenting this bill this morning. I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp.
I yield 2.5 minutes to a distinguished member of the Ways and Means Committee, the gentleman from Kentucky, Mr. Davis.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I would just like to point out that the louder one yells, the more you say it, as I told my children when they were little, doesn't make it true or correct. I think that we need to get down to the facts in this matter, and that saying that paying back an overpayment is a tax increase is dissembling at best. It's the return of money that was not entitled by a particular individual. Democrats were for this before they were against it. To say it's a tax increase is simply wrong. Democrats created this mess. Democrats made the IRS, of all organizations, the arbiter of health care. I mean, I think we need to get down to the truth here and not make the mistake of, since we're incurring issues of values and honor and faith here, Isaiah the prophet made the comment that beware of those who call good evil and evil good, or sweet sour, or sour sweet. There's a consequence that comes in that, and the American people are entitled to the truth. Democrats increase taxes. Democrats increase costs. Democrats increase complexity of government. And my friends on the other side of the aisle, frankly, misrepresented the facts of this bill at best, or completely ignorant of the process they set in motion unilaterally.
The gentleman yield?
No.
Thank you.
Indeed, to call this a tax increase reminds me of the health care debate last year when we were told we just have to read the bill to find out what was in it. I don't think you read the bill under any circumstances. Mr. Speaker, I rise today in support of this comprehensive 1099 taxpayer protection and repayment exchange subsidy and Overpayments Act of 2011. I want to read some correspondence from the middle-class families in my district who think this is the right thing to do, that believe that people aren't entitled to something that they earned under law, and people who get paid something that they didn't believe it should be paid back. My citizens and my constituents. Greg from Independence, Kentucky wrote, "We don't need this new 1099 requirement for small business. Get out of the way so we can prosper," and that means creating taxpayers, not raising taxes. Eric from Cynthiana told me small businesses are already being crushed by overreaching government mandates and undue burdens. I'm personally sick of this foolishness. Joanne from DeMossville wrote in to tell me how she'd personally be affected, and she said, "My husband is a sole proprietorship, and I currently complete and submit 1099s for his subcontractors. So if we spend $600 at Home Depot, I now need to send them a 1099? Sounds like a great use of my time and resources." Tom in Burlington may have summed up the requirement the best when he simply called it a nightmare for business. Mr. Speaker, we need small businesses to focus on what they do best, to innovate, grow, and hire. This reporting requirement needs to be removed now. It's burdensome, and it's going to drive up costs and cost us jobs. If allowed to go into effect, it will slow job growth, lead to higher prices for consumers. Let our job creators create jobs and focus on that. I urge support for H.R. 4 and yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin.
I yield such time as Mr. Crowley shall consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
I thank the gentleman for yielding to me. I wonder if my friend from Kentucky heard from the middle-class taxpayers. I know he's heard from the small business owners. We've all heard from them. But has he heard from the middle class that when they get imposed this tax upon them, have they said, "Don't put this tax on me"? No, because quite frankly, they don't know what's happening. They wouldn't dream that you would do this to them. They wouldn't dream that somehow you might possibly inflict and impose upon them a $4,460 tax. If your constituents earning $88,000 go over by 1 penny, 1 cent over the 400th percentile of poverty, 1 penny, they have to pay back $4,460, which they never, ever physically touched, never received. It went to the insurance companies. The insurance companies get taken care of. They get their money. They're fine. By 1 penny over the federal poverty level, your middle-class families have to pay back $4,460. Does that sound fair to you? Now, maybe for 1 penny over, they have to give a little something back. And for every dollar over, maybe give a little something back. but to pay back $4,460 so they can provide their families with health care. I'd say to the boss, do me a favor, don't give me the penny bonus. Don't give me the $250 bonus. Don't reward hard work. Don't reward me for doing good work, because if you give me the bonus, I'm going to have to pay $4,460. Does that make any sense to you? What about making pay work? What about asking Americans to do their job, to do it well, and if you do it well, you'll get a bonus, you'll get ahead, your families will be taken care of. Under this bill, this is a nightmare for the middle-class family. A nightmare, because they're not going to be able to pay that. It totally subverts the intention of what we tried to do in the first place, and that is to provide health care to the middle class. And with that, I yield back to my...
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp.
I yield myself such time as I may consume. I appreciate that language, to get back to what they tried to do in the first place. Let's look at what they did in the first place. Their bill, their original bill, said anyone who earned more than 400% of poverty, that's $93,800 for a family of four, would be required to repay the entire amount of the exchange subsidy. That is exactly what this bill does. This bill does what the original health care legislation did. Now, then they raised it and said, well, if you made up to $117,000 for a family of four, you had to repay the entire subsidy. They had a cliff in their bill. There is a cliff now, and what we're saying is we need to see that the American taxpayer is protected. And with that, I yield 2 minutes to a distinguished member of the Ways and Means Committee, the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Brady.
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to follow on with what Chairman Camp made such an important point here. This new national takeover of health care is just a mess in so many ways, and two of them we highlight today. One, our Democratic friends heaped a huge new paperwork burden on our small businesses that none of them, frankly, can comply with. And then they create a loophole where some people in America can get taxpayer subsidies even if they don't qualify for them. So let's be clear. Today we are fixing two huge Democratic messes that they made. And we're going to fix them because our small businesses can't take more of this burden. Many of them are barely hanging on as it is today. And secondly, with these huge deficits, we can't afford more fraud and abuse in our government system. So we apply a pretty simple principle. If you get federal money you don't qualify for, you're going to have to repay it. Not everyone. If you're moderate income or below, we understand you don't have that money. But if you're making higher than the national average, you're making $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year, and you got a subsidy from some other family that you don't deserve, you're going to have to give it back. That's what this bill does. It takes a huge burden off our small businesses they never should have had, but our Democrat friends put on them. And then we're going to ask people to repay money they should have never got that our Democrats allowed them to get. This actually is a bipartisan bill. At the end of the day, watch the vote. You'll see so many people in this Congress saying it's time to fix this. We're going to fix this mess today. I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin.
I want to yield to Mr. Kine. Before I do that, I just want to say 3 quick things. It is such a misstatement for someone to come here and say, even if they did not qualify. That is not correct. They qualified. So don't come here and say they didn't qualify. Essentially what you're saying is middle-income taxpayers came and defrauded when the truth is they told the truth. And indeed, there's a provision relating to fraud. If someone were guilty of that, it allows for full repayment in cases of fraud, and there's a provision that imposes a civil penalty up to $25,000. And the last thing before I yield, I want to make clear, last December we fixed, Mr. Camp, the cliff. You voted for it. It was 409 to 2. I don't think you were one of the two. This resurrects the cliff, purely and simply, and catches hundreds of thousands of taxpayers in the future, middle-income taxpayers. I now yield 5 minutes to the distinguished gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Kine, an active member of our committee.
The gentleman is recognized.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. I ask unanimous consent to revise and extend. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure my good friend and colleague, the previous speaker from Texas, also realizes that this money that they will be hit with on this hidden tax is something they never see to begin with. This is a tax credit that goes directly to the private health insurance companies. And this bill could be better titled the Republican Tax Trap of 2014, 2015, 2016, and on and on and on. Because that's exactly what's going to happen, is this hidden tax trap that's going to affect hundreds of thousands of working-class, middle-class families through no fault of their own. I think my colleague and friend from New York explained very succinctly what would happen here with the cliff, that if you're at 400% poverty, family of four of roughly $88,000 a year, you receive a little bit of income, you receive a little bit of a bonus that might put you just over the edge, you're going to be hit with a $4,600 tax liability at the end of the year. Now, they're not going to be in a position to deal with that. So either they're going to have to find a way to come up with the money to pay that Republican tax that they didn't expect, or it's going to discourage work, and they're not going to try to earn as much income because they don't want to go over that 400% level, or they're not going to participate in the health insurance exchange to begin with. And we got a score on that as well, that over 266,000 families will choose not to participate in the health insurance exchange for fear of this hidden Republican tax trap that we have before us today. And what's ironic about this is this insurance exchange as part of the Affordable Care Act is a bill that I and others have worked on for years in a bipartisan fashion called the SHOP Act. Republicans were in favor of creating these health insurance exchanges coupled with tax credits so that small businesses, family farmers, individuals finally had a place where they could go and shop for affordable health care coverage with competing private health plans finally competing for their business for a change, so that they had the same type of leverage that large corporations do. And this has been proven models and pilot projects throughout the nation that have shown how effective these health insurance exchanges work. And what they're doing now with this legislation, with the offset that they're proposing, hitting the middle class with a tax cut, is doing things to undermine the health insurance exchanges and the ability for small businesses and individuals to go out and obtain affordable coverage. And that's unfortunate. But this is consistent with the zeal on the other side of doing everything they can to undermine the Affordable Care Act, regardless of who it hurts, regardless of the additional tax burden. As my friend from Michigan indicated, we fixed this problem last December in a bipartisan fashion. So instead of creating a cliff, which was a mistake in the original bill, there'd be a gradual phase-out of these tax credits. So it wouldn't be such a huge hidden tax trap as my Republican colleagues are calling for today. But at some point, we're going to have to come to grips that a lot of what's in the Affordable Care Act is necessary and long overdue, not least of which, and I think this is going to be the key to health care reform and the final verdict, is the ability for us to change the way we pay for health care in this country, changing the fee-for-service that exists in Medicare today to a fee-for-value or a quality-based reimbursement system. We can start by doing that with Medicare, and the tools are in place under health care reform to do that. And this will extend then to the private insurance industry. And this, too, is a bipartisan issue. Newt Gingrich has been talking about it. Dr. Bill Frist, Tommy Thompson, my former governor and former secretary of HHS, has been talking about changing the reimbursement system in health care so we reward value and quality and outcome of care as opposed to the volume-based payments, which is literally bankrupting our nation today. It is the largest and fastest growing expense that we have at all levels, at the federal, state, and local level, and for businesses and families alike. It's one of the reasons why I've got folks in Wisconsin at each other's throats right now, talking about public employee benefits. And the biggest cost driver in state budgets today are rising health care costs. So why not embrace the reforms that we have in health care reform that will lead us to a value-based reimbursement system, which many people, on a bipartisan basis, have been talking about for years, and we are finally able to get those tools in place under the Affordable Care Act. We just can't do it overnight. You don't change the way you pay for 1/5 of the entire U.S. economy overnight. And so we've got accountable care organizations, medical homes, bundling programs to incent value-based payments. But we also have the National Academy of Sciences, the Institute of Medicine, doing a 2-year study right now to change fee-for-service to fee-for-value. And they will present an actionable plan to the administration to implement, which gives us, I think, the best hope of changing the outdated and perverse incentive system that we have in the delivery of health care today. It's leading to overutilization in health care. And studies have shown that close to 1 out of every 3 health care dollars, or about $800 billion a year, are going to tests and procedures that don't work.
Additional minutes.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you. 1 out of every 3 health care dollars, or $800 billion we're spending a year, that we're not getting a good bang for the buck. It's going to tests and procedures that don't work. And because of the overutilization or the overtreatment that so many patients are receiving, they're being left worse off rather than better off. That's going to be the game changer when it comes to true fiscal responsibility in this place. It's something that everyone's been ducking. For the last couple of weeks, we've been talking about this continuing resolution that only deals with 12% of the federal pie. And unfortunately, it goes after the most vulnerable people in our society, especially our kids' education. And yet we all know where the big money lies. It's in the health care programs, Medicare and Medicaid. It's in defense spending. Well, if we don't get serious in turning the cost curve around when it comes to health care, then we're just fooling ourselves with everything else that we're doing with the budget. We've addressed that in the Affordable Care Act, with programs that are set up now and payment reform that is moving forward to change how we pay for health care so we can improve the quality of care for all Americans, but add a much better bang for the buck for the American taxpayer. That's what we should be coming together on, rather than discouraging people from participating in the exchange, which will create true competition with these private insurance companies, which again is long overdue. And instead of offering this legislation today that sets up this Republican tax trap for middle-class working families who will be surprised at the end of the year because they put in a little bit more time and they earned a little bit more income, or they got that last-minute bonus from their employees, and then suddenly they realize, oh my God, we're going to owe $4,600 because of what they're doing here today. It's outrageous, it's unfair, there are better offsets, and here's an idea. The retired CEO of Chevron just this past week said, hey, when oil's above $70 a barrel, let's stop the subsidies. Let's stop the tax breaks. This is a retired CEO of a major oil-producing company that's saying that this is nonsense, that we're still wasting so much money in subsidizing big oil when oil's above $70 a barrel. Today it's over $100 a barrel. That would be an appropriate offset, and I'm going to hand off to my friend from Oregon to pick it up at that point. Thank you, and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp.
At this time, I yield 4 minutes to the distinguished chairman of the House Administration Committee, the gentleman from California, Mr. Lundgren.
Chairman, the gentleman is recognized.
I thank the gentleman for yielding the time. My name happens to appear on this bill as the original author of this bill, H.R. 4. I remember when I introduced this last April, members on that side of the aisle were told by their leadership, don't dare go on this bill to repeal this necessary provision of the Affordable Care Act. By the way, if it is truly an Affordable Care Act, why has Secretary Sebelius granted over 700 waivers to companies and unions because it's not affordable? Why has virtually every member of my constituency who has health insurance had an increase in their premiums as a direct result of the quote-unquote Affordable Care Act? Just a passing question, because I'm asked that all the time by my constituents. Why did I introduce this? Because provision 9006 of the bill has nothing to do with affordable care, has everything to do with the capacity of our friends on the other side to find ingenious ways of impacting business, because I guess business is considered bad. Well, I got an answer for you here today to the question of who creates jobs. This is who creates jobs: small business. And this particular section of your so-called Affordable Care Act kills business, kills small business. What does it do? It is based on the assumption that everybody cheats. Why? Because a 1099 form is usually utilized for the purpose of making sure you carry out your obligation to pay payroll tax. But what did we do in the Affordable Care Act, so-called? We increased the reach of 1099s so that when you have no obligation to pay anything, you have to report on the person on the other side of the business transaction so that they supposedly are cheating, and therefore we have what's known as the Universal Snitch Act. The idea that it's going to gain $19 billion, in my judgment, is created out of whole cloth. You have to assume that almost everybody cheats to get your $19 billion. And here's the game here in Washington, D.C. We create a new obligation on business that's never existed before. We then secretly put it in a bill. Virtually no one on this floor knew it was in the bill. And then we score it for gaining $19 billion to the Treasury. And if I dare come to this floor to repeal it, I'm obligated to come up with $19 billion in new taxes or some sort of a spending cut. The American people ought to understand the game that's played. In secret, we pass something like this, which has an unbelievably pernicious effect on business. Now, how does it have such an effect? It requires every single person involved in business or trade to go into accounting to make sure that every time they reach that threshold of $600 or more with anybody they purchase something from, they have to file a 1099. Here's what someone in my district just emailed me, a small business person, a woman. I have 15 employees. As owner, I am the HR department, the bookkeeping department, the administration department, and still serve my customers while surviving this economic climate. It will be a tremendous burden, both in time and dollars, to send out 1099s to all my vendors, appliance manufacturers, parts distributors, other suppliers, utility companies. It is a job killer provision. We brought this H.R. 4 to the floor to get rid of a job killer provision. The other reason why it is a double-edged sword on small business is if you want to minimize the number of 1099s that you file, you will not go to your local hardware store. You will not go to your local restaurant. You will go to the big box store. You'll go to the chain restaurant. And we are killing small business on this floor. So I understand the sincerity on the other side of the aisle of those.
I yield the gentleman an additional 30 seconds.
The gentleman's recognized.
Of those who are concerned about the middle class. Who do you think small business is? This is the middle class in my district and virtually every district across the country. These are the people who create jobs. You'll put a dagger in their side, and now you come up and argue against passing this legislation because you are concerned about the middle class. You are killing the middle class with the provision in the health care reform bill, so-called. What we are trying to do is to get rid of that. We're trying to help the middle class. We're trying to help the job creators. We're trying to help the people in our districts who don't have jobs. Don't distract the debate on this job killer piece of legislation. Give us some relief, which is being called for all around the country.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin.
Before I yield to Mr. Blumenauer, I yield 30 seconds to the gentleman from New York.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from New York.
I appreciate the comments of my
recognized.
friend from California, and I don't question his motivation. But I would suggest that if the assumption is that we believe everyone cheats, I think that's wrong. What I hear from the other side, not from the gentleman from California, but generally from the other side, is that the belief is the middle class cheats. The middle class cheats, and that's why we have to impose this upon them. And I would use an example of a middle class businessman or woman. And that businessman or woman who files an individual tax form as a small business person no longer will have to file the 1099 forms, but if they make $88,000 a year and they are 397th percentile of federal poverty, and they have an unexpected increase in income, they will be subject to the $4,460 middle-class tax hike.
I yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Oregon, Mr. Blumenauer, a member of the Ways and Means Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Levin. I appreciate that. It's a little interesting when we hear our friends come to the floor with the same talking points. My good friend from California talks about the government takeover of health care, which, of course, PolitiFact called the 2010 political lie of the year. allowing 33 million additional Americans to have access to...
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
State your point.
The gentleman made a personal reference to me, stating that I made a statement on the floor and then called that the biggest lie of the year. Is that, in fact, an appropriate comment to be made on the floor during debate?
Mr. Speaker, he's not...
Gentleman will suspend.
I'm asking the question, and I'll make the point of order.
The gentleman from California has not stated a point of order. Would you proceed, state the point?
I would make a point of order. The gentleman has made a personal reference to me and then followed that up by saying that what I said was a lie.
Is the gentleman demanding that the words be taken down?
Not at this time, Mr. Speaker, but I would ask that the Speaker would admonish members not to question the motivation of other members in reference to any debate that's taken place.
Mr. Speaker, I would suggest that people listen to what I said.
The gentleman from Oregon will proceed.
What I said was he claimed the government takeover of health care, and I said, which was judged by PolitiFact, an independent journalistic effort, the Republican claim of government takeover was the 2010 political lie of the year. Now, if the gentleman feels uncomfortable that
Mr. Speaker, I ask the gentleman's words be taken down.
The gentleman will suspend. The gentleman from Oregon will take his seat, and the clerk will report the words. Does the gentleman from Oregon seek recognition?
Seek unanimous consent, Mr. Speaker, to withdraw the previous statement.
Is there objection? So ordered.
I appreciate
Gentleman may proceed.
I appreciate the opportunity, because I want to be very clear about what I intended, what I thought I said, and I think a review of the tape would reveal. I'm not calling anybody a liar. What I said, intended to say, and I will ask unanimous consent to put in the record, is that as we have repeated talking points about a government takeover of health care, this has been judged by an independent journalistic undertaking as the political lie of the year. I'd be happy to yield.
All I just want to make clear the record, I never made a reference to the government takeover of health care in my speech, and the gentleman was errant in making a personal reference to what I had just said.
I will be happy to proceed. I apologize if the person who said government takeover of health care was not you. It is repeated so often by my Republican friends, including the Speaker of the House, time and time again, that sometimes I get confused because it is a litany that is used. It is, in fact, and I would ask unanimous consent, Mr. Speaker, to put in the record the PolitiFact article, because those words are still echoing in the chamber. It has been said by my friends.
Without objection.
Somebody on the other side of the aisle earlier. PolitiFact editors and reporters have chosen government takeover of health care as the 2010 lie of the year. They chose it as the year's most significant falsehood by an overwhelming margin. The label, quote, government takeover, close quote, has no basis in reality, but instead reflects a political dynamic where conservatives label any increase in government authority in health care as a takeover. They point out the law that Congress passed, parts of which have already gone in effect, rely largely on the free market. Employers will continue to provide health insurance to the majority of Americans through private insurance companies. Contrary to the claim, more people will get private health insurance. Government will not seize control of hospitals or nationalize doctors. The law does not include a public option. It gives tax credits to people who have difficulty affording insurance so they can buy their coverage from private providers. It relies on a free market with regulations, not socialized medicine. We have concluded it is inaccurate to call the plan a government takeover because it relies largely on the existing health system of coverage provided by employers. Mr. Speaker, part of what we're seeing here, though, is this drama that is pulled out where talking points are repeated in an effort to obscure the facts going forward. We have, the majority knows that the Democrats have attempted to adjust the 1099. We don't want it in there. We voted for fixes. It will be fixed between the House and the Senate. What's killing small business is the crushing burden of health care they're trying to provide for their employees. What is killing small business is that they can't compete with big business. They have a system that has provided a downward spiral. What's providing the driving force for the government deficit is increasing costs of providing health care, for example, through Medicare. This used to be an area of bipartisan cooperation. The Health Care Reform Act includes every significant area of reducing health care costs as either a pilot or a demonstration. It points a path towards saving hundreds of billions of dollars. Those used to be bipartisan.
An additional 2 minutes to the gentleman.
Thank you.
Gentleman's
Those
recognized.
used to be bipartisan. But instead of working with us to refine and accelerate the provisions, people are trying to put sand in the gears. And as my friend from Michigan and from New York have pointed out, There are going to be some, we hope they're unintended victims, but they're going to be innocent victims, people in the middle class and near middle class who don't have the control of billionaire hedge funds to control their income. There are things that can happen that will adjust it up or down. There will be a significant penalty. We've worked to fix that cliff. We've approved it. We don't need to reinstate the cliff. The tax on honest mistakes, as has been pointed out, there are provisions to deal with fraud. This is part of the drip, drip, drip to try and undermine health care reform, not accelerate it. It's a part of misrepresentation politically that the American public, frankly, don't deserve. It's a lost opportunity for us to reduce the deficit, improve health care, and lower costs. This is very personal to people like me. I come from an area of the country that provides high-quality health care at a low cost. My people are penalized. The health care reform is moving to try and help people like that as we overall improve health care around the country and protect the deficit. I am sorry for any ambiguity or misunderstanding from my comments, but I am frustrated when I hear the Republican side of the aisle continue to repeat this political lie of the year. It doesn't help the debate. It doesn't help us move forward, and we're going to have to move forward to solve the problems of this country. Thank you, and I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp.
At this time, I yield 2 minutes to a distinguished member of the Ways and Means Committee, the gentleman from Louisiana, Dr. Boustany.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the time to act on this provision is now. Why? It's very, very simple. It's about jobs. It's about removing an onerous provision, a burdensome provision on small businesses that create jobs. And if we wonder why we have a high unemployment rate, it's because of provisions like this. This 1099 provision was bad legislation from day one. The American people have made it clear they want this law repealed. The President thinks it's bad. Democrats think it's bad. Republicans think it's bad. Even the Senate thinks it's bad. It's taken long enough to move on this. Let's do it. Let's get it done. Further delay is unacceptable. Look, if we don't repeal this now, businesses are going to assume more expenses. And if we repeal it later, we continue to delay this, they will incur expenses that once it's repealed, they wouldn't have had to incur from the beginning. I'm already hearing from many, many Louisiana businesses right now that want to grow, want to hire, and they're worried about this, and they're already spending money to prepare for this. That's why we need to take care of it now. If we want to create jobs, repeal this provision now, and let's move forward. The American people want to see action on this from this Congress, and they want to see it now. It's important now to do it. Americans are growing impatient. Small business owners are growing impatient. And I ask that we repeal this provision today, repeal it now. And I yield back.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan.
I yield myself 15 seconds.
Gentleman's recognized.
The gentleman who just spoke last July voted no on repeal, as did the gentleman from California who spoke before him. You both had a chance to vote no, and you failed to do so. You didn't like a pay-for that closed the tax loophole. I now yield 5 minutes to the gentleman from Massachusetts, Mr. Neal, a distinguished member of the Ways and Means Committee.
The gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank Mr. Levin for yielding the time. This provision came over from the Senate, and as Mr. Levin correctly has noted, members on this side of the aisle have already cast a vote to repeal this measure. The difficulty that's in front of us today is the manner in which this has been presented to all of us. Now, we're going to hear a lot of conflicted opinions today about the new taxes in this bill. Like everybody else here in this chamber, I am opposed to raising taxes on the middle class. Hardly is that a leap of faith into uncharted waters. We all share that common belief. But the problem with the provision that's offered today is the disguised nature of raising taxes on the middle class. Let's get to the heart of this bill. It repeals a new reporting requirement on small businesses. This provision expanded a type of reporting that already goes on, where businesses report to the Internal Revenue Service on large payments sent to contractors. This type of third-party reporting is meant to ensure those contractors report honestly to the IRS on the income they earn. A reminder, it is estimated that there is up to $300 billion a year of unreported income in the United States. And before we get to some of the cuts that have been proposed in this institution, we ought to be focusing our attention on how we might collect that unreported and underreported income that is such an important part of the underground economy in the United States. You would think that that opportunity would avail itself based upon the mindless process that took place here a couple of weeks ago, where we began with a series of 2-minute votes over 2 days to cut very important initiatives that the American people have come to rely on. And I would suggest to my friends on the other side of the aisle that they take note of that Wall Street Journal poll this morning as to what these cuts mean and how they are going down with the American people. In our committee markup, there was a great deal of discussion about the burden on small businesses that this new reporting requirement imposes. And I think that for the most part, we are all in agreement that the burden here may well outweigh the benefit. But let's not ignore what we have found out about tax evasion at our markup. I asked Tom Barthold from the Joint Committee on Taxation about his estimate that the reporting requirement would raise $22 billion in revenue. Now, Tom Barthold is not a Democrat, he's not a Republican, he's an economist who likes to give unjaded information to those of us who then implement policy. I asked him how much of this was tax evasion, contractors underreporting income, and how much was the penalties on those innocent third parties who got tripped up on the rules. And he told us that almost all of it was due to tax avoidance, tax evasion. So, without any hearings or debate about how to best capture that $22 billion, we eliminated this reporting requirement and would raise taxes on middle-income families. I want to urge my friends on the other side, before we travel down this path of cutting very important initiatives for the American family, and I can't wait till we have the first vote in this institution up or down on Social Security to see if the rhetoric really matches the reality. And then I'm hopeful that as we move to the discussion and debate on Medicare, we'll see if the rhetoric matches the reality. But I would hope that before we move on this mindless trail of these proposed cuts that have taken place over the last 3 weeks, that we might consider what to do about the whole notion of tax evasion. I hope that those on the other side of the aisle would join me in my efforts to ferret out tax abuse. I have been on the issue of...
Time has expired.
I yield an additional 1 minute to the gentleman.
Gentleman is recognized.
I have been on this issue for a career of what to do about American companies that change their address so that they become a citizen of Bermuda to avoid American income taxes, while there are hundreds of thousands of American soldiers overseas, why our VA hospitals are going to be necessary for the 31,000 that have been wounded in honorable service in this country, and why, before we propose the cuts that we have proposed, we are not after tax evasion the way that we should be. That ought to be something that men and women of goodwill in this institution all ought to be able to agree upon. And I thank the gentleman for yielding.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I yield 3 minutes to a distinguished member of the Ways and Means Committee, the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Smith.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I truly believe that the best thing that this Congress can do is focus on jobs, making sure that someone might have access to health care through a job, but increasing the cost of doing business certainly does not contribute to our effort to help create jobs. I rise in support of H.R. 4. Repealing the 1099 mandate would only help, certainly in my district, family farmers, ranchers, small businesses. Let me tell you briefly about a restaurant owner, a small operation. He will go from 4 1099s to over 200 1099s. That's after $7,000 increase, or $7,000 in new software, Mr. Speaker. That certainly provides opportunities for a misplaced digit in an identification number that lead to the wrong person being audited. Certainly, it makes sense to recapture an overpayment of a subsidy so that we can return to the people the opportunity to go out, create jobs, and in the end, ultimately provide more health care for the American people. Thank you. I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin.
How much time do we have? Please, both sides.
The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Levin, has 26 minutes. The gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp, has 51 minutes.
Mr. Camp, shall I proceed?
Proceed.
No, I meant you have not much more time. Do you want to yield some time?
I'd be happy to do that.
Okay, and then I'll yield to Mr. Waxman.
The chair recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Mr. Camp.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. At this time, I yield 2 minutes to a distinguished member of the Ways and Means Committee, the gentlewoman from Kansas, Ms. Jenkins.
The lady will proceed.
I thank the chair and I thank the gentleman for yielding. According to the President's health care law, starting next year, any business that purchases more than $600 worth of goods and services from another business is required to submit a 1099 tax form to the Internal Revenue Service. I'm a strong supporter of job creation. However, I do not think building more bureaucratic barriers for small business and creating additional positions at the IRS is the kind of job growth this country needs. As Alan Myers, an electrician in my district, stated in a letter to my office, this is absurd. The small businessmen of this country have more paperwork than they can get done now. While we have disagreed about the full repeal of the health overhaul law, the administration and many of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle have recently decided they strongly agree with Republican members in Congress that the 1099 reporting provisions should be repealed. However, a few weeks ago, we received the President's budget, which would only repeal the 1099 requirement for goods, but keep it for services, a glaring contradiction to the President's stated strong support for the full repeal of this harmful provision. So I'm pleased that the House has chosen to move forward with the full repeal of this unprecedented burden on small business. Furthermore, if my colleagues on the other side of the aisle are truly serious about reducing waste, fraud, and abuse in our health care system, then they too can support this measure with full voice, since it is paid for by reducing overpayments of exchange subsidies. In this economic environment, Congress needs to be working to remove the barriers to job creation and finding ways to rein in the cost of health care, not imposing new government mandates to squeeze every dollar out of small business. While we await action from the Senate on H.R. 2, the full repeal of this health care overhaul, I urge my colleagues to vote in support of H.R. 4 today to fix one of the many flaws in the President's health care law. I yield back.
Gentlewoman's time has expired.